It was unanimous. There were no dissenting opinions. Everyone said that the 1983 New York Jets had everything. Of all the teams in the NFL, they were the strongest contender for the Super Bowl. Well, it's the 8th week of the season, and first-year coach Joe Walton has been searching for the reasons why his extremely talented team has won only 3 of its 7 games. Another first-year coach is Dan Henning of the Atlanta Falcons, and his team started well, winning 2 of 3. But the Falcons have since lost 4 in a row, also with a group that is well equipped with strong players. Perhaps none stronger than running back William Andrews, the NFL leader in all-purpose yardage in 1983, and considered by most to be the best fullback in the league. The Falcons also boast one of the NFL's top showmen, Billy White Shoes Johnson. White Shoes can still break a game open with some fancy footwork, and this year has been the Falcons' leading receiver, catching passes from the NFL's top-rated quarterback, Steve Bartkowski. In 7 games this season, Bartkowski has thrown 14 touchdown passes and, incredibly, only 1 interception. His counterpart is Richard Todd. Todd has experienced some rough going in the first half of the season, but the Jets quarterback is always capable of having a big game. 2 teams off to disappointing 1983 starts, but both well aware that it's not too late to turn things around and begin that surge that will hopefully end with a spot in the playoffs. From Shea Stadium in New York, it's the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets in the NFL Game of the Week. As always, the opening kickoff was the game's first play. No surprise there. The surprise was that the return by New York's Preston Brown, number 89, turned out to be one of the few exciting plays in a first half filled with defense, turnovers, and generally uneventful football. Brown's cross-country run gave the Jets excellent field position, and they turned to their running game to capitalize on the opportunity. A 10-yard burst by number 25 Scott Durking was one of 4 consecutive running plays as New York began conservatively. When Richard Todd did go to the air, the result was a turnover. Jerome Barkham fumbled the reception, and number 36 Bob Glazebrook recovered for the Falcons. It was an early sign that Atlanta's defense, one of the most aggressive in the league, was ready to do its part to help snap the team's 4-game losing streak. This season, the Falcons switched from the linebacker-oriented 3-4 defense to the old-fashioned 4-3 with 4 down linemen, and the change, as the Jets found out, makes it tougher to run against Atlanta. The Falcons did a good job of stuffing New York's ground game, and when Todd attempted to throw, they stopped that also, with the likes of this sack by Mike Pitts, number 74. Defense was dominant through most of the first quarter, but the Jets finally began to move the ball on the strength of their short passing game. A sideline toss to Wesley Walker was followed by Mike Augustiniak's one-handed grab as the Jets marched down to Atlanta's 19-yard line. From there, Todd decided to go for it all. Number 23, Bobby Butler, ended New York's scoring threat with an end zone interception as the Falcons' defense produced its second turnover of the quarter. A second look at the theft shows that Todd had no shot at all to get the ball to Walker. Butler had perfect position, and there was simply no way to get the ball past him and into Walker's hands. Defense had been the order of the quarter, particularly the Falcons' defense, and the 2 teams moved into period 2 locked in a scoreless duel. But that changed in a hurry as the second quarter got underway. On the first play of the new period, the Jets' Bruce Harper, number 42, raced 78 yards for a touchdown to give New York a 7-0 lead. With the injury to Freeman McNeil, Harper has been getting more opportunities to run the ball. And against the Falcons, the 5'8" veteran took the handoff from Todd, slipped at the line of scrimmage, then realizing that no Falcon defender touched him down, immediately continued running all the way to the end zone. The Jets now led 7-0, and it was time for their defense, anchored by a strong front four, to show that they too could put the clamps on enemy offenses. A blitz by linebacker Bob Crable, number 50, stripped Bartkowski of the ball, but the Falcons quarterback got a lucky bounce and maintained possession. But the Jets were now showing signs that they were ready to take control of the tightly contested game. And on their next offensive series, Todd directed the most impressive drive of the day. It began with power running by Dwayne Crutchfield and picked up momentum with a beautifully thrown pass to number 85, Wesley Walker. Another pass, this one to Mike Augustiniak, number 35, brought the ball to the Atlanta 12-yard line. The Jets had marched from their own 20 and were set to add to their lead. But a missed connection between Todd and a wide-open Jerome Barkham in the end zone left New York short. Following the touchdown that should have been, place kicker Pat Leahy missed his second field goal of the second period, and the Jets still led 7-0. With less than 2 minutes until the half, the Falcons employed some novel means of advancing the football, but it wasn't enough to put any points on the board. On the half's final play, Bartkowski, with plenty of time to locate his receiver, hit a streaking Alfred Jenkins over the middle. But Jenkins fumbled, and the Jets' Kirk Springs recovered as time ran out. The first half had not been classic football. Defense, turnovers, and some sloppy play prevailed. One big play by the Jets produced a 7-0 New York lead. The second half was a different story. The Jets exploded out of the starting blocks as Todd cranked up his short passing game again. Only this time, when he got down deep in Atlanta territory, he turned matters over to running back Scott Durkin. From the Falcons' 4, Todd handed off to Durkin, number 25, and the 220-pound runner barreled into the end zone for the touchdown. The Jets, stymied most of the first half by the Falcons' defense and by their own mistakes, had taken what seemed like a commanding 14-0 lead early in the third quarter. They had a chance for more when Steve Bartkowski threw only his second interception of the season, a deflected pass into the arms of number 56, Lance Mell. The Jets had a golden opportunity to put more points on the board, and Todd wanted to take advantage quickly. He threw to number 80, Lamb Jones, over the middle for 30 yards, and New York was again inside the Falcon 10-yard line. 2 plays later, number 35, Mike Augustiniak, scored from 3 yards out. And all of a sudden, midway through the third quarter, the Jets had broken open a tight game and now led 21-0. Augustiniak is a 226-pound bruiser, and he used his desire and determination to force his way through the right side of Atlanta's defensive line. In a span of 2 minutes in the third quarter, the Jets increased their slim 7-0 lead to a seemingly comfortable 21-0. The Jets were on a roll and the Falcons were clearly down. But there were over 20 minutes to play, and what happened in the game's final third could never have been expected. The Falcons' mood now had to be as dreary as the Shea Stadium weather. Down 21-0 without anything resembling an offense, quarterback Steve Bartkowski was looking at a 3-touchdown deficit and only a quarter and a half remaining to do something about it. So he began by running number 42, Gerald Riggs. Riggs made some good yardage on the ground, and then Alfred Jenkins gave Atlanta some semblance of a drive with a sideline reception. But this march was about as solid as the damp mists of the afternoon, as Bartkowski and company soon found themselves back in their old routine. The sack exchange picked up its third quarterback dividend of the game. And then Bartkowski, who had thrown but one interception all year before today, was victimized for his second in the last 5 minutes. Number 40, Bobby Jackson, had the Jets humming zippity-doo-dah after the turnover. And New York looked to increase its lead as Bruce Harper continued his excellent running. But Atlanta's defense pulled together and halted the Jet drive. Now only about 2 minutes remained in the third quarter, and it was here where Atlanta began to turn the game around. A flat pass to Riggs picked up good yardage, and then came a controversial play involving wide receiver Stacey Bailey, number 82. The play was ruled a completed pass by the officials, much to the dismay of the disbelieving Jets. It was a critical call in the game as it kept Atlanta's drive afloat. And then Bailey followed with a less controversial but equally important second grab. Bartkowski capped off Atlanta's deepest penetration of the day with the Falcons' first score, coming just as the third period came to a close. Number 81, Billy Johnson, showed the Shea contingent that he could dance as well as New York's Mark Gastineau. After all, White Shoes was one of the originators of the creative spiking back in the mid-'70s. What was more important here, though, was the fact that he had finally put Atlanta on the scoreboard. But the fans watching the game, in the words of Al Jolson, ain't seen nothing yet. White Shoes was just starting to rev up, and the New York Jets weren't going to like what was about to happen one little bit. One immediate effect the touchdown had was to issue a wake-up call to Atlanta's defenders. So aroused was the squad that they did not let the Jets get past New York's own 40-yard line for the remainder of the game. Number 50, linebacker Buddy Curry, logged an important sack, forcing the Jets into a fourth-down punting situation. In torrential downpours, slippery turf can make special teams play even more of a high-risk occupation than it already is. But no one could have foreseen how hazardous White Shoes Johnson was going to be to the health of the New York Jets. Billy Johnson was fashioning a one-man show against New York with his second key play of the game. Another look at the 41-yard return shows that Atlanta's blockers created a cavernous lane for Johnson to zip through on the run back. Then old Billy just did the rest on instinct. Now, despite the wet weather, Atlanta was burning. Bartkowski wasted no time going for his 16th touchdown pass of the year, spotting William Andrews over the middle for the score. Nearly 12 and a half minutes remained as Andrews crossed the goal line, and the Atlanta Falcons, once dead birdies, were now firmly off the list of endangered species. The Atlanta Falcons had come a long way in a short time, battling a talented team, a hostile crowd, and a driving rain. The Jets seemed ripe for the taking if only the Falcons could come up with another big play. That was the cue for an entrance from stage right for Atlanta's version of the Lone Ranger. With white shoes instead of silver bullets, Billy Johnson was about to rescue his ball club again. "71 yards later, White Shoes had his 7th career punt return for a touchdown, and the game was knotted at 21. Last year, Johnson battled to make the club as a free agent after 2 years in Canadian football. All he did after that was lead the conference in punt returns. It looks like White Shoes has every intention of defending his crown in 1983 as well. After eluding an initial jet tackler, it was smooth sailing down the sideline. Then one last juke on punter Chuck Ramsey added the final flourish to the White Shoes promenade. While Billy Johnson was bedeviling the Jets from all angles, the Atlanta defense continued to play at a top level as well. The Jets had not answered as 21 straight Falcon points had been tallied, and with Atlanta's defense in charge, that situation did not change. New York found itself on defense again, knowing that their cushion was gone. Any Falcons score now would give Atlanta their first lead. And the man who paved the way was who else? Billy Johnson, showing yet another way in which he could contribute. But just as Atlanta seemed ready to gain end zone entry again, New York's high-stepping Mark Gastineau blasted in for a quarterback sack, and the appropriate dance followed as expected. Gastineau and White Shoes are two of the NFL's most well-known hoofers, but then Atlanta kicker Mick Luckhurst showed he'd been spending time at the Arthur Murray Studios himself. Mick drilled the go-ahead field goal, then performed a Gastineau-like war dance of his own. Mick's effort was impressive, but even this creative bit of footwork took a back seat to one last Billy Johnson effort, as White Shoes finished off the Jets on a nifty end-around. Billy's burst set up Luckhurst's second field goal try, and with the conversion, the Falcons wrapped up a thrilling 27-21 come-from-behind victory. For For the puzzling Jets, it was yet another bitter loss in a season where so much had been expected. But for Atlanta, it was turnabout as fair play. The Falcons had lost most of this year's games in the final minutes, so this was a refreshing switch. But the big story of this game was undeniable. Rarely has one player taken command of a game as Billy Johnson did today. A 15th-round draft choice from tiny Widener College over 9 years ago, White Shoes Johnson is a little man who has succeeded in a big man's game. He is now and probably will retire as the NFL's all-time leading punt returner. But you can put aside statistics when speaking of a player like Billy Johnson. His stature may be short, his size diminutive, but no one in the National Football League today has a bigger heart than the little fellow wearing number 81 on the Atlanta Falcons.